Welcome to the Sober Unicorn. We are a gay-hosted, all-inclusive podcast about sobriety and addiction recovery for the LGBT plus community and all of our allies. I am your host, Holden, and thank you for joining us today. Well, hey, everybody. It's Holden back here again with the Sober Unicorn. I hope everybody's doing absolutely fantabulous, and hopefully everybody's having a great weekend so far. Today, we have a very special guest joining us. We actually got in contact via Instagram. He was celebrating, I believe it was 5 years of sobriety. And I shared his post to the Sober Unicorn podcast Instagram, and we kind of just started talking. And he has a very unique and interesting story to kind of share with everybody about his journey. And so I wanted to bring him on. So everybody say hello to Marcum. Hello, Marcum.
Hi everyone.
How are you doing today?
I am doing great. How are you?
Doing absolutely amazing. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on.
Oh yeah, no, I am super excited. Very excited. So thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So why don't you tell everybody, of course, I told them your name already. I already slipped the bag on that one. So tell everybody kind of a little bit about you, how long you've been sober, and like what your drugs of choice were.
Sure. So again, my name is Marcum, or as you will find out in a little while, also Celeste Jules Baudet. If you say it fast, it's celestial body. Hopefully. My sobriety date is July 9th, 2017. So I just celebrated 5 years. I actually came into recovery about 2 years before that. And the first 2 years, I say, were a little rocky. A lot rocky from time to time. And, you know, which drug wasn't my choice? I definitely started out with alcohol at like 14 and really just stayed with alcohol, lots and lots of alcohol until my late 20s. And then I moved to Chicago. Found like ecstasy. Then we found like K. Then we found G, and then we started going through the alphabet, and then finally found meth, and meth was the life changing game changer for me.
And how long were you on that substance specifically?
um Probably daily use the last 3 to 4 years.
Okay, so
But
it was
it
a
had,
pretty substantial time.
yeah, and up until like once I discovered drugs, I would be out like 5, 6 nights a week, and I thought that was normal. I remember telling a coworker that I didn't like to go out on Fridays because Fridays had a little bit of an obnoxious crowd. But she was like, "So you go out 6 nights a week?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Monday's Dollar Burger night. Tuesday was Drag Race. Way before RuPaul's Drag Race at Roscoe's in Chicago, there was an actual drag race contest. Wednesday's the best night. Thursday's a great night. Saturday you have to go out. And then Sunday, yeah, that's another great night." So, yeah, so 6 nights a week, drugs really took over. Last 4 to 5 years, meth specifically, and then that was just you stop just going out and just stop going to bed.
Yeah, I mean the bars really, I mean, of course that's their business, that's where they're there to make money, but they have really learned how to target that specific audience because it's especially the gay community. It's like, oh, Tuesday's underwear night. Who thinks about going out on a Tuesday? But of course, who doesn't want to see a hot man in some underwear? And then it's like, oh, Sunday, fun day, beer bust. And it's like dollar beers until the keg runs out. And so it's a constant excuse and reason for us to take ourselves back out to the bar and party and be like, well, of course I went out on a Monday night after work. I mean, it was the beer bus or the bear bus, the leather night. I mean, there's so many different things. Um, so leading up to, of course, the first time the as you said, you came in 2 years, 2015, before your last sobriety date. What finally was like the straw that broke the camel's back to get you sober?
Well, I was living in Orlando, and my brother had passed away from a heart attack unexpectedly, and I suddenly found myself with tens of thousands of dollars. Um, wasn't working, and I had actually gone to Bear Week in P Town, and doing a lot of meth. And that's the first time that, and I'll just go ahead and say, unfortunately, at the Dick Doc, that I started to have paranoia and start to experience like paranoia, a little bit of schizophrenia, um, and came back, and it really just took off. And I remember the first day that I woke up at my house and I knew my house was surrounded by cops. For 8 hours, I stood in my living room with my hands up like this, crying, saying, "I've got dogs here. Please just take the dogs before you break in and shoot me." That started a landslide, to where if I was driving, I would have to pull over 20 times and take side streets because I knew there were cop cars surrounding me. Um, I was spending a lot of time because a lot of my story also has to deal with sex for validation. So I was spending a lot of time at the very classy adult bookstores, bathhouses. They knew me by name. They knew which rooms I liked, because I was on their frequent flyer miles, we will say. And I had got a new job and moved back to Atlanta, where I still live. Um, and the schizophrenia was out of control. Like, I wasn't sleeping. I would crawl from my bedroom on my hands and knees to the living room with the blinds closed and look out the window like this for 12 hours. Um, and I finally realized that I could outsmart the cops. And if I flushed the drugs at the end of the weekend or week, when they busted in, they wouldn't find anything and couldn't arrest me. So that plan had worked great for a couple of weeks until I went to flush a bag of meth and I realized I had seen a Roto-Rooter truck in the neighborhood and realized those cops were trying to outsmart me and they had snuck into my house and put something in the bottom of the toilet so when I flushed the drugs, they would find them. So knowing they were going to break in any second, I did what any logical person would do and I took the bag of meth and I swallowed it. Which the next morning exploded in my stomach. Um, my family had no idea. And so when I had to call my sister, who lives about an hour and a half away, and say, "By the way, I'm going to the ER. I have a bag of meth that exploded in me, and I don't know how things are going to turn out." Complete shock. I was in the ER for several days. I was in the hospital for almost a week. And I was under a year in my employment, so I couldn't take FMLA to leave to go to any type of recovery establishment. And sorry, that's Kincaid. He was saying hi. And so I basically had to learn, what are you going to do? Okay, you're going to start going to, you're going to find, a recovery community and you're going to start going there. And I walked in on a Sunday. Luckily here in Atlanta, we have a gay recovery clubhouse that houses a lot of different types of recovery that truly saved my life. And walked in, and that's where I started the journey. I was amazed to find out that other people, like, "Oh yeah, I carry TVs away," and people were laughing about it, and I'm like, "This is so strange." Um, and so that is what initially brought me into recovery.
Yeah, I mean it's excuse me. It's crazy that when we share our stories, we think that these are the most outlandish things that we've done, and the people in the recovery community are like, "Girl, that's it? Like, your bag exploded in your stomach. This other person next to me is like, oh, I shoved it up my ass." So it's insane on how we think that the things we go through are so unique to us, which I mean they are for us because of course we didn't do those before, but it recovery community, it's like, girl, that's it? That's all you had to do? Like, so of course, rewinding a little bit for anybody that doesn't know the term dick dog, that was kind of coined back in, I think it was what the early 70s or like late 70s ish, early 80s, like San Francisco time. That was when gay men would gather kind of at the piers, and like kind of just have orgies underneath the piers. So I mean, if anybody didn't know what that term was, Now you know it's essentially a big old orgy that's outdoors by a pier off the beach, which sounds absolutely romantic. Um, so, of course, you came into the rooms the first time in 2015. I mean, of course, you have a clean date of 2017. So, what happened between then?
Um, so my brain was so fried when I came in. Like literally 4 months after coming in, I would still sit in the meeting room, making sure my chair faced the door so I could look out the window because I knew cops would be out there to arrest me when I would leave. I would see someone new that I didn't recognize, and my brain would register undercover cop. And I would start shaking in my chair because I knew they were coming to get me. And when some people are like, "Girl, you thought I was a cop," and like bust out laughing, they're like, "Do you know how long I was in jail for?" But of course, my mind was just trying. I always say, Control Alt Delete and start back over. And so now the only security blanket that I had known to live life, um, really for the past 10 years in one form or another, was gone. And I mean, these emotions were so raw. I barely knew how to be a human. I had no idea how to be a friend. I was shocked when people told me the world didn't revolve around me because they obviously were wrong. And I remember I came in, and the first day I met with my first sponsor, I just said, I have no idea who I am. That I think has been the big journey of my existence through recovery, is discovering that authentic self. But it was worth it, but it was hard. It was really, really hard. I didn't know how to process. And I really thought that at a year of sobriety, people would be lined up to ask me out. And when that didn't happen, that gave me a big old resentment. How dare they? I did all this work. Um, and it was stupid. I mean, it was such stupid stuff. It was um, a misunderstanding at a party that, I mean, literally sent me berserk. Um, and it was really not knowing how to communicate, not knowing how to express my feelings with emotional maturity, emotional sobriety, not understanding how to listen and hear someone else's side, and still being in self and not service.
Yeah, I think talking about people not asking you out, there's a group in Dallas. It's called Lambda. I believe they're nationwide. It's just a gay centric organization, and I've heard from many people, oh, Lambda's a hookup. That's where you go to get some trade. And I'm like, I was feeling myself, so I was like, ooh, let me go try to go get some trade. And I've been there. I've been out to Lambda maybe 3 or 4 times now, and nobody said nothing to me. Nobody tried to get my number, and I was like, "What the absolute hell?" I mean, like resentments, and of course, self pity started popping up, and everything like that. So I mean, and discussing your flushing of the meth, um, I mean, it's been probably 11 months since I've touched that narcotic, and when I see cops, I'm all of a sudden immediately like, oh my god, there's probably like a shard in my car somewhere, even though I've gotten it detailed. What I would do afterwards is, after my binging, I would shatter the piece of things, and I would put them in a hot water of Ziploc baggie to erase fingerprints in case they found all the glass to piece it back together. And then I would take it to my carbon complex dumpster and sprinkle it around the dumpster inside. So I was like, okay, there's hot water to erase any like residue, and then water to erase my fingerprints, and then like the things we do is absolutely lunacy, and we don't realize it after we get sober. We're like, what the hell were we thinking that we thought was normal? Like you said, going out 6 nights a week. Here I am blacking out 5 nights a week. I'm just like, that's what we do. Like when you get off of work, you go and relax and enjoy yourself. So you you discuss, of course, rediscovering like your true identity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how what let me think. What is the major difference from like who you were before to who you are now in sobriety?
Oh, geez. I was gonna say we don't have that complete long of a time. Um, so I think the main thing I through a lot of trauma growing up, and everyone has their own trauma. Also, everyone has their own way of dealing with it. I definitely did not get the handbook on how to process your trauma. Um, and so I grew up I grew up somewhat confident, but being, a gay person, having to hide that side of myself for so long, not understanding who I was. Um, I brought a lot of stuff from my childhood to my adulthood. And then instead of working through it, I started masking it with alcohol. And, I realized that if I could be the life of the party, I must be cool. And so I learned how to drink everyone else under the table so I could be the cool guy that fit in. I didn't realize I was being the obnoxious guy, and I'm lucky people, even stayed friends with me. And so I came into recovery with no sense of self. Just what is it? And I always hear this term here, and it defines me perfectly. Uh, and now I can't think of it. Great. Something with an narcissist with a inferiority complex.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because that was it. I would lay in my gutter and look down on you. And I realized early on that since I didn't love myself and I didn't like myself, that there was one moment in my life that I realized that God had it out for me and that I would never get love. And so I thought, you know what? Fuck you, God. I may not be good enough to love, but I'll be good enough to fuck. And I don't need love if I get validation. So my mentality was if I sleep with one hot guy a night, I must be worth something. If I can sleep with like 5, 10 hot guys a night, I am the belle of the bathhouse. And that's how I got myself worth. That's how I got validation, was from others. And when you're super high, when you think you're sleeping with Prince Charming, sometimes you see it was a frog, and that's okay, because trust me, 3 days of being up, ass in the air, I'm sure I was not, sleeping beauty herself, let's just say. But that's how I define my existence, and that's what I live for. I cringe when I say that now, but that was my existence. I would skip friends, parties, events, holidays. I mean, I spent more than one New Year's Eve at sex clubs, um, and so starting to unwind all of that just chaos in my head. Um, I started to realize that that's not the way to live, and that's not the human existence I wanted. I started learning about a new definition of a higher power for myself. And it was probably several years. It was about 3 years into sobriety. And just a little backstory, like one of my gigs, I'm a pageant coach. I've trained girls for Miss USA. I've been a state director for pageants. Like when I was a little kid, my mom would check me and my sister out of school and take us to Miss USA every year. So 8th grade, when I could record the Miss USA pageant and watch it 2,000 times, there. We're not going to say how many times I've watched stuff on YouTube now, but I loved that aspect. And when I was 18, I went to my first gay bar in Louisville, Kentucky. It was called Connections. And it was this huge complex. So they had a go go dance bar. They had 2 huge dance bars. They had a restaurant. They had a piano lounge. And they had a huge theater that housed drag. And I remember I saw the drag show for the first time, and I would go back there all the time. And I didn't care about any of those other rooms. I just wanted to see drag, and I was enamored. So my love for pageants, my love of drags, my understanding that, especially back then, I didn't think a hot guy would sleep with a drag queen. So there is no way that I was even fathoming that, because I needed the hot guys for validation. So a few years ago, we do a huge Halloween party at my recovery clubhouse, and a bunch of my friends were dressing in drag, and they're like, "Come on, you're gonna dress in drag." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." and I enjoyed it. So the next year, they asked if I would come back and perform a number. And at that point, I'm like, I'm okay, but I need a name, right? So
Mm-hmm.
literally, I'm sitting at my kitchen table. I'm like, what's my name? And in my head, it was just like Celestial's Bode, Celestial Body. Like it just came to me. And I'm like, okay. So I performed one song. It was a Taylor Swift number. The next year, they asked me to come back, and I did two numbers. And then that's when COVID hit. And so I was one of the people that I started. I'm like, oh my God, I can go to meetings all over the country, all over the world. And so I started zooming into different meetings, and I heard them start talking about like online talent shows that they were doing. And I reached out to some people in LA, and they got me in contact with kind of like the social chair for a recovery community out there, like so nice, walked me through what they were doing, and I brought it back and I said, hey, what if we did this here? And got the approval. And so suddenly I went from performing twice, so I got to host and perform. And we actually did that 3 times. And the second time, the person who usually did my makeup wasn't able to do it. So I had someone else do it. My eyebrows were literally up here. And I thought, if I'm really loving this, and if I'm going to do this, I need to go all in. And so it's like, I don't even know. I know what lipstick is, but I don't know. And so it was this journey of starting to buy makeup, starting to watch YouTube tutorials, um, starting to go back and rewatch everything, different performances and learn songs. And next thing I know, I'm like, I'm really enjoying this. Like painting my face is becoming therapy. Um, I look more forward to coming home and doing this than anything else. And yeah, through that, Celeste was formed. And it's so funny because I just saw a Facebook thing pop up memories. And August 3rd will be a year since I officially started drag. I did the biggest drag competition in Atlanta called Dragnificent. Um, not I looked like Betty Boo country bumpkin up there. I mean,
I mean, you are in the South.
I am in the South, but I'm like, I started this journey at 47. I started drag at 47. I was just impressed that I got up there and proud of myself, which wasn't something I always said, that I did it. Now, I'm sure out of 19 contestants, I came in 19th. I was definitely the booger of the group, but that's okay because I was not there to win. I was there just to do it. And I can't believe a year later, like I've got weekly bookings in Atlanta. I do a drag brunch every Sunday. I perform every Wednesday night. I'm getting bookings around. I won a newcomer contest a few months ago. And hopefully this year I'll be doing my first actual pageant too. And finding that authentic version of myself and realizing that for me drag is expressing my feminine side, my even more feminine side. um it's been the most amazing discovery of my life. And I couldn't imagine my life without Celeste. And I'm like, look, we got to get shit going. I'm 48 now. I'm like, we're not going to be doing any death drops. If we did, we would literally drop dead. But I also discovered the burlesque community, and I have fallen in love with burlesque, with chair dance. And so those are things that I can incorporate. And there's the most incredible burlesque studio, Metropolitan Studios, love of my life. I haven't been able to be there recently, but when you just find a family and it's right. That's how I felt with this group of amazing women who have welcomed me, accepted me, and mentored me. And I didn't realize how much I would love dance, and how much it would help evolve the character of Celeste like it has.
You're listening to The Sober Unicorn. We'll be right back after this short break. This episode is brought to you by Von Shine Creatives at handmadeandgreat.com. Von Shine Creatives is a sober owned business featuring finely crafted goat's milk and vegan soaps. Treat yourself for someone you love today. Take $5 off of $25 on all your purchases site wide, and remember, it's always free shipping. Use the coupon code SOBER, which helps support Von Shine Creatives and the Sober Unicorn podcast all at once. Link and coupon code will be in the bio. Now back to our episode. And it's crazy to think about, as you said beforehand, you enjoyed the drag community at 18, going to connections, and you stayed away from it because you thought men would not date a drag queen or sleep with a drag queen. And now that you're sober, you're like, I don't give a shit. I don't need no man. And you are finding something that is connecting you not only to a different side of you in a different expression form, but something that's connecting you to an extended family, where you're more accepted and everything like that, which is incredibly important, I think, to be a part of a community. That's what I think the recovery community has given. Almost, I can't speak for everybody, but I would say a majority of people that are in recovery are surrounded by the most supportive individuals possible in their life. And so, I mean, you're finding that in drag and you're finding that in the burlesque. And so, how is the sober drag community there?
So it's really good. We actually there is a place is called Dry a Sober event. That's a drag show that I've got to be a part of in the past, and they do like monthly, every few months. They will do a drag show, and they'll have mocktails. You know, Nick at Night is kind of like the founder of it, and so thankful that he let me be a part of it. It's so amazing, and for me, because I work in bars now, that's my job. Who would have thunk it, right? um, that I have to be very open. I try to be very open about my recovery, just because if someone I knows someone who's struggling, I want them to know that they can say, "Hey, I know someone you can talk to." And that's, for me, that's really important. So when I go in somewhere, it's the first thing, what do they say? You want a shot? And my response is, I don't want to pick up a white chip tomorrow, but thank you, and kind of make a joke out of it. And my show directors always, I'm like, look, I'm like, you can do shots. I'm like, I don't know if you did a line of meth around me. And she's always like, honey, look at the size of me. You can tell I'm not doing meth. But she'll do a little joke. So like, we'll do a shot rimmed with meth, and I'm like, maybe tomorrow. Um, but and she's always like, I'm just joking with you, right? And I'm like, of course. I love to laugh. I am at a point that I can say, hey, you know what? Yes, we can look at the humor in it, because laughter, humor is something that helps get me through. Um, but everyone that I have met has been so supportive. And even queens will comment on like an Instagram or Facebook post, and it's like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. Through that, I've also discovered other sober queens here that may not be as out as I am, which is fine, but will just say, yeah, I haven't had a drink in, X amount of years. And so it's also, I know, kind of like that underlying of, hey, if I ever find myself in a situation, I've got someone here that I can go to. But I know if I went to any of them, they'd be like, bitch, walk away now. Come on, we're going somewhere.
Which is great to have that. I think I've heard it in the rooms before. So if you want to stay sober, surround yourself with nothing but sober people, because if you ever want to go out, you won't have the time to get to the door because people will stop you. So of course we know in the drag community, of course with RuPaul's Drag Race being in the limelight, that queens can be very selfish, very narcissistic, very egotistical. But
Wait,
in
what?
but in sobriety, it tends to put our pride and our ego in check. So, how do you balance this? Let me be this fabulous queen that is ruling the world, but also trying to maintain your humbleness and your ego at the same time.
So I'll tell you, I hosted our Halloween party this past year, and I was terrified because I know how I've got that sharp tongue, that quick wit, right? And I can go for the jugular. And I think that's one of the things in sobriety, realizing tearing someone else down doesn't necessarily make me funny. I didn't understand that before. And so there was this big fear of, can I be funny without being vicious? And I even told like the social chair, I'm like, I'm really nervous about this. If you see me start to, just kind of go like that, and luckily, thank God, everything was fine. I try to be rational, which isn't my best characteristic about my drag. Okay, I am 48 years old. I'm the oldest baby queen you're ever gonna meet. Um, and my makeup skills have improved, but they are not the best. I am constantly like, how do you do this? How do you do that? So I don't think that I'm all that, because I'm not. I I'm a middle-aged bald man, slightly overweight. That's just trying to make it in the Atlanta drag community. And that's what I'm doing, and I'm enjoying my journey. I am welcoming those that want to be a part of it. But if someone doesn't like it, I'm also not taking it personally, which I think has been really big for me. Because the old me would be like, "Why aren't you worshiping me?" And this version of me is like, "Thank you for being here." And still, in my first year, I'm still defining and discovering who Celeste completely is. I've got a really good idea, but I guess fine tuning her some. Um, and so when I go to a meeting, I'm Marcum. Um, now people might call me Celeste, which is fine. But I still have the same struggles. In April, my job was eliminated. I used to have this disposable income that I could buy as many shirts, dresses, wigs, whatever. I don't have that anymore. I'm still looking for work. So when I share about where I'm at in a meeting, that's where I'm at right now. I'm very blessed that I have these opportunities coming to me, but it's a part of who I am. It doesn't define me. I define myself. One thing that I just want to touch on real quick was what brought me back into recovery. Um, because I got a resentment and I went out and I'm like, I will never walk through these doors again. And I became a very quick daily user that took me back darker than it had ever been. And I literally, like the last couple of months, I wouldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I would look at my dogs and just sigh. And I was just gonna use until I died. I was okay with the fact that them saying, "Oh yeah, don't be like Markham, go out because you may not come back alive." And ironically, I was at a bathhouse one night. Go figure. Um, and I remember shooting up with a friend, a person I was sleeping with, that we went to a bathhouse together. And I remember walking down the hall, looking and seeing blood running down my arm, and thinking, "Ooh, someone might know that I did something." I woke up. It was the next day. I was in the emergency room at Grady Hospital here. I was in restraints. They came and said, "What's your name?" I had no idea what my name was. They asked me where I lived. They're like, "What town is it?" I don't know. And this happened for a few hours. And then finally they said, "What town are you in?" And I'm like, "Chicago." And they're like, "No." And then suddenly it all started. I remembered the road that I lived on. And when remember that name, I remember I had an apartment. Suddenly it kind of all came back. And apparently, I had passed out in the steam room and they had to pull me out and CPR and, go to the ER. And that next morning, it was around 11 a.m. And I went to get my phone because I was wondering if the guy that I had been partying with the night before was still up. Because if so, when I got out of there, I was going to go meet him and party some more. Like, I couldn't, the sheet on my chest felt like a million bricks. And I thought it would be a good idea to pick up where I left off. And there was this defining moment that literally the world went still. And this voice said, "You can do that, but you're going to be dead in a couple of weeks. Or you can get your life back together and go to recovery." And I remember sitting there contemplating, like, what do I want to do? And finally, I took a deep breath and I said, okay, I'll give this one more try. But one thing that I had been guilty of was seeing recovery as clicks and seeing recovery as, oh, I don't fit in with this group or I don't fit in with this group, and letting myself get resentments for that. And I had to go and say, I don't care what anyone thinks. I don't care what anyone is going to say. I don't care if people like me, if they don't. I'm going there to save my life and get sober. And that is the only reason I'm going there. Anything else, I really could care less about right now. And that's what I did when I crawled in, looking gray, ugly, crying, non controllably, but picking up that white chip. And oh my God, I was starting to get a little emotional. Um, that white chip saved my life. And that community wrapped around me and said, we're going to love you till you can love yourself. And that took a long time, but they didn't give up on me. And so that's the person that I remember. I and that's the person that I always go back to, because I'm one bad decision from being that person, or even worse. Um, and so again, I'm a middle-aged drag queen in her first year. I would, if I win drag race one day, then we might talk about different ways of dealing with ego. But trust me, where we are at right now, I'm just, as they say, blessed and booked, and that's truly how I look at it, because I get to live my dream right now, and that's something that I wish everyone had the opportunity to do.
Yes, Drag Race season 1 with that bad filter. No.
Oh.
I mean, I think nowadays the drag race scene has become so big. I mean, these queens are spending like $30,000-$40,000 for their wardrobe for the show. I mean, don't get me wrong, it comes back to them, but still. But so going back to the bathhouse, the of course you woke up in the hospital. The friends that you had been partying with the night before, did you wake up with any form of him reaching out saying, "Are you okay?"
So, and I I don't even know what the dude did, but I know he had a really good job. Ironically, a person that used to be in recovery worked at the bathhouse and was there that night. So they had been messaging me, and they're like, that's no friend. They're like, literally, when that happened, the emergency door went off because he grabbed his stuff and ran out the emergency door and jumped the gate. I get it. You're high. You could lose your job. Ironically, no, we never saw each other again, um, and that's okay, because I think I'd known him for all of 2 weeks. So if I did see him, I wouldn't even probably remember what he looked like. But again, that was all about my decisions and my poor judgment. And that was just, I just say that was like a guest star in my life for that week's episode.
Yeah, I think it's important though to know that, because I've experienced friends in my life that they went to jail for 6 7 months. Well, of course, we're sober in jail, and getting out, they try to go hang out with those same people, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sober," and then within a week, they're texting me like, "Oh, I'm shooting up again," and I'm like, "Girl, like you've just spent 7 months sober. You're so gung ho," and it shows that the people that are still in their active addiction, even though like from my experience they want to support you, they still also miss that person you were, where it's like, shit, can't you just get high with me and have some good sex? Can't you like just get fucked up and let's party all night? And it's unfortunate that there's not more support, I would say, between the cross paths of people still using and people not using. But yeah, creativity, I've seen in the recovery community has been vast. I mean, so many people in recovery have started businesses, have found new hobbies. I myself, I was painting beforehand. I started in like 2020, um, and I was doing a form of art that a lot of people do, and I was kind of doing it because I knew that I had some very well off people friends, and a lot of them would buy my work, and I'm like, oh great, I just sold a $200 piece, let me drink $200 worth of alcohol. And now though, I just hit 9 months sobriety on the 23rd, and it's just now my creativity starting to come back. And it's not the same art that I'm doing before. Now it's like, Holden, take your time. Like, put your expression into this, your feelings. Like, I finished a piece and everybody's like, oh my God, that looks so good. And I mean, it feels much better now that when something so simplistic can have an impact on other people, when it's like the old style I used to do. It's like, yeah, it looks good, but it's like mass produced art that everybody else in the damn world does because it takes zero technique to complete it. Um, but yeah, I mean, rediscovering creativity is massive. And I mean, Celeste, of course, it seems like she is taking over. So now, like you said, that the recovery group threw their arms around you and was like, we'll love you till you can love yourself. And now you got to love two people. You got to love like, your Marcum as Marcum, and you got to love Celeste because even though it's just a drag persona, you still have to create kind of her own identity on who she is and how she treats people. Because I did drag back in the day, long, long time ago, ages ago. And
Oh, stop. You're only 19.
I was, you know what's funny? I think it was 19 is the last time I did drag. So it's been like, I'm 31 now as of tomorrow. So, um, but what's weird is the moment that wig and that makeup and the duct tape goes on, you fully become a different individual. Like, I became a raging bitch that was very attention seeking. So I wonder how I'd be sobriety. So before we come to a close of the episode, like what would you like to share with everybody that you already have it?
Um, I definitely will say it's not been the easiest journey of my life. It has been the most beautiful journey of my and continues to be the most beautiful journey of my life. Um, the friends that I have, I mean, they are there for me and they show up. And the gifts of sobriety that I have, whether it's, performance, just being able to go 4 months without a job and not drink or use over it. Those are gifts that I never would have been able to have before. And so it's gonna suck sometimes. It's gonna be great sometimes. I always say that if this cracked out queen can do it, anyone can. And the first time I ever told my story, this just came out of my mouth at the end. And I always try to add it. And it's what I realized my definition of grace was. And that is time and time again, I've done everything in my power to destroy my life. But yet my higher power gives me a life more than I could ever dream of, and definitely more than I could ever deserve of. And that's the gift of recovery that I've been blessed with, and I truly hope everyone else will be blessed with.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Markham.
Of course.
Well, if anybody has resonated with your story or wants to see who Celeste is, or just kind of speak with you, where can they find you?
No, of course, I would love that. So on Facebook and on, I think the kids call it the gram these days. Um, so both of those for my boy account is Marcum, Marcum 74. For Celeste, it's Celeste, Celeste underscore JULES underscore BODEE, Celeste Jules Baudet.
Awesome. Well, everybody go follow her, him, depending on which account you want to go see, and just enjoy his story of recovery, and reach out to him if you resonated with his wholeness or whether, hey, you resonated with his drag persona. So again, Markham, thank you so much, and you have a fabulous day.
Thank you and happy birthday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you again for listening to today's episode. Hit that follow button to be notified about new episodes every week. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Instagram at The Sober Unicorn Podcast or on our website at thesoberunicornpodcast.com. There you will find our episodes as well as our very own sober-owned shop featuring products from small businesses that are sober-owned. And remember everyone, don't be normal, be a unicorn, but better yet, be a sober unicorn.